balance, fulfillment, and joy. I'm Kayla Sweet, and together we're going to have fun and create change from the inside out. I'm so glad you're here.
Welcome back, my friends. We are here for another episode with Sara McCready today, and we are going to expand on what we've been talking about. She's been with us for this will be the third episode that she's joining us on Internally Guided Life, and we have just deepened our exploration each time. And today we're going to be digging into chakras, understanding them, unblocking them, really trying to lay a foundation like a 101 lecture or 101 conversation to give some groundwork as to what chakras are, how we work with them, how Sara uses them to support people in their relationships and rebalancing their lives. So this is going to be so juicy. And if you haven't heard the first two episodes, you need to go back and listen to them. You can listen to them out of order if you want, but I'm telling you, do not want to miss the first two. So find all of the episodes with Sara. But with that, I just want to say welcome back, Sara. I'm so excited to have you here again. Do you want to just give a brief reintroduction for anyone that might not have listened to the other episodes yet and just tell us why you're excited about this topic?
Yes, good morning, Kayla. Here we are, episode 3. I love how deep we have gone on both of those episodes, episode 1 and 2, and how much information, valuable information, tools, techniques, tips, tricks. Really, that second episode is like a master class. And so I am just so grateful and honored to have this time with you, to have done episode 1 and 2, and excited to share episode 3, the chakras. So yes, for those that have not met me yet, my name is Sara McCready. My business name is Illuminated Joy. And I am the founder of a one-to-one mentorship program called Illuminated Path. And this has come through the personal experience of 4 separate toxic relationships over a 25-year period of my life. And it was that 4th and final toxic relationship that created the breakdown for the breakthrough. And it was through that emotional healing journey that I was able to learn about the chakra system, understand the energetic body, and then start applying the energetics, as we call it, to the physical world, to my real world. And that shifted absolutely everything in my entire life. In fact, it changed the trajectory of my entire life. So I also spent 20 years in a corporate environment, and then literally walked away from that to be able to share this wisdom and this ancient knowledge with other women who have experienced trauma, however they may have experienced that, whether it's through the toxic relationship, personally, intimately, romantically, with family, with friends, or in the workplace. And so that's what brings us here today.
Yes. Oh, this is going to be so juicy. I'm already like just bubbling over with excitement. I can't wait to see where this conversation goes. But I guess to kind of set the expectation or to set an intention for the episode today, is there anything that you want to say as an introduction? Because we're going to get all into the chakras and we're going to dig into what they are and how people can relate to this and work with it. But as we're starting, what is your real hope for the listeners as far as what they'll gain from today's conversation?
Yeah. So as you're listening to this, I'm going to request that you just have an open mind. If this is an unfamiliar subject or topic, if what I'm saying doesn't quite land, I'm asking you to just listen in with an open mind and trust that you will receive the information that you need as you're listening. So some of it you'll remember, some of it you won't, but come back and listen to it again and again. And that goes for episode part 1 and part 2 as well. Just listening with an open mind and absorbing or receiving the information that you need in that moment.
Mm. Yes, that is such a beautiful intention to set whenever we're listening to anything new that maybe doesn't land with our previous constructions of how we think of the world and ourselves and relate to it. You really have to be open and curious and, yeah, going into it with a learner's mind. So I love that.
Yeah.
Before we start talking about all of the nuances, I know we've been discussing that this could be a much longer episode than we're going to try to condense it into. But in your personal story, what really led you to this chakra work? I know we've talked a little bit on the first 2 episodes about your journey and your story, but let's kind of frame it and shine the light towards your work with chakras, particularly, and how that's supported your journey.
Yeah. So, as part of my emotional healing journey, I moved into the role of Reiki master teacher. I became an intuitive mentor, and it was through the discovery of energy healing to support my dark night of the soul or my grief journey that I learned about the chakra system in a much deeper way. So I had been aware of the chakra system at a high level. I had been a student of astrology and some metaphysical and spiritual teachings, but I hadn't really explored the depths of the chakra system and how it truly relates to our physical body and our physical world, and how it actually directly relates to our emotions. So it was through my emotional recovery journey and having energy healing that I began to have an awareness and then start learning. I actively sought out information so that I could learn what is a chakra and how does it work and what does that actually mean to our 3D world, as we call it, our physical world. Because this is it's such a broad concept, and it is a little bit woo or woo woo, as some people use the terminology to describe this type of conversation. But what I started to learn is that it's actually really based in a lot of science, especially now we have so much more information available to us that proves that the energetic body is very much active and alive and creating with us the realities that we see in our everyday life. And the chakra system plays a part in that as well.
I am so excited. On a personal level, I'm coming into this conversation with, I think you had framed it as like a very high level. Like I've heard of the chakras. I've done a little bit of work with Reiki teachers, and I've done a few like chakra clearing meditations that were very powerful in the moment, but I have not spent a lot of time educating myself in this area. So I'm going to be learning along with the listeners as we go through this today. And I just know that my perspective is going to be expanded by this. So thank you again for coming on. I'm just so excited to dig in.
Hey, me too. I love being able to share this information. One of the things that I say, like in my tagline when I'm giving an introduction, sometimes I didn't do it today, I like to normalize the woo. That's what this teaching is all about. Being able to talk about the chakras in a way that normalizes it for you, that brings it down to the earth plane. So it's not such a high out there concept. It's not such a woo-woo concept. So today we're going to really focus on the practicalities of the chakra system so that there is a foundation, like you said, that chakra 101 for you to walk away with after listening to today's episode.
Yes, yes. It's going to give a foundation. And what I love about you, Sarah, is your ability to bring it down into the day-to-day practice. So I know people are going to walk away with things they could do today to support this energy healing. So,
Yeah.
okay, let's just start at the very beginning. What is a chakra? Define it for
Mhm.
us.
Mhm. So the word chakra itself is actually Sanskrit, which is Eastern um, type, I want to say language, but it's not really a language. And it means the word wheel. Chakra means the word wheel. So there are 7 main chakras. They run along an imaginary or energetic meridian from our tailbone-ish to the top of our head. There are many, many, many other chakras, but today's conversation is going to focus on the main 7. And the word chakra is really about this wheel. When our wheels get clogged, so let's use a car analogy. When the tires on our car are deflated, or maybe they've got like some dirt on them, we've gone through dirt country road and maybe there's some stones stuck in the treads and they're caked in mud and they're not really rotating or rolling properly. They're kind of a little bit wobbly. They might be a little bit sluggish or slow. And so we go and we wash the tires off. We take a hose and we wash them down, or we go through the car wash. When our chakras, which are essentially a wheel, they are wheel-like in shape and diameter. And when they are clogged by emotions, so remember, I think we talked in the first episode that energy, or rather emotions are energy in motion. And so what happens with our chakras is that they get clogged with our emotions, with that energy of heaviness, that energy of grief, sadness, hurt, anger, rage, shame, blame. Those are heavier, denser emotions. And our chakras over time get clogged with those heavier, denser emotions when we haven't processed our emotions. So, for instance, when we've had trauma, big T trauma or little t trauma, and we haven't processed it or released it, it gets stuck at the cellular level. We know this now. The body keeps the score. We are fully aware of how that works now. And the energetic body, or the chakra system, is also part of that emotional navigation system. So when we're not clearing our chakra system, those wheels do not rotate smoothly or evenly. They get wobbly, they get caked in mud, they're heavier, denser, and this impacts us at the physical and emotional level.
Mm. That beautifully explains why this is so important, right? Like
Yeah.
if we're walking through the world having never intentionally or unintentionally done any kind of work in this, and we are leaving all of these traumas and emotions unprocessed, there's a real impact to how we can function. And I think that's something that's important to just really lay that framework, right, to understand why this matters and why it shows up in people's lives in such a real and big way.
Yeah, yeah. And that was the grand epiphany for myself, was understanding that those 25 years of life experience, of traumas, of unprocessed emotional experiences, even though I thought I hadn't fully processed them, had created this clogged system. I wasn't operating at peak capacity or performance. And it impacts our emotions when we haven't been able to use the energetic body or even work with the energetic body, when we haven't learned to clear it or heal it or work with it, it very much impacts how we're feeling and how we're showing up in the world. So we may have the best intentions to heal ourselves cognitively. We may be going to therapy and talking it out, but that's only one part of the puzzle. The whole puzzle, as they say, holistic, the whole puzzle is really incorporating the other aspects of the emotional healing journey, which is this cellular level healing, this energetic healing, the chakra system, mindfulness, as we talked about in our, I believe, first and second episode, starting to understand mindfulness practices so that we can create that balance. So when we're talking about balance, back to the analogy of the tires, we balance the tires on our car. So we need to balance our chakra system also in order to have that sense of centeredness and calmness. It is a contributing factor to how we feel and to our emotions.
That makes just so much sense, right? Because I'm glad that you brought in holistic wellness, holistic health, treating the whole self. And we had talked even about soul care previously, which that has changed my life, let me just tell you. But I think so many more people are starting to realize that some of our traditional approaches, while they might be useful in some capacity, aren't the whole picture, and that we really do need to include more. It's not to say that there's better or worse ways of healing, but if we're missing pieces of the puzzle, we aren't going to be reaching our potential and reaching our growth and our healing in the way that we could. So I think, again, that's a really good way to frame it.
That's exactly it. You're kind of getting partway there, but not all the way there. And that was what was so profound for me. Was I had gone to therapy after each of those three relationships. 3 of the 4, I had gone to therapy, and it took a really long time. It took like years for me to get over each of those relationships. With the 4th and final toxic relationship, I was incorporating therapy and energy healing. And it was so profound to incorporate the holistic approach. It shortened the amount of healing time, mentally, emotionally, physically, because I had also become physically unwell during that, being in that toxic dynamic and trauma. And it shortened the amount of time from what I had experienced with the previous 3 relationships. And it also created this centeredness and balance, as well as a full releasing. So again, when we are working with the chakra system, you're enabling yourself to fully release the experience of the trauma or the toxicity at the cellular level. So even though you're working with the energetic body, this provides you a higher level of emotional release than you would otherwise receive. And that's what creates that holistic or whole body transformation.
Yes. Yeah, it really brings in that the soul, the energy, the emotions, the physical. Like we know these things aren't separate, but we so often try to treat them as though they're separate and when we speak in our language and in the way that we seek healing. So it's just really bridging that gap.
Yeah. And that is, societal and cultural for us in North America. We do treat it separately because we don't have the awareness. And so that's why I like to talk about normalizing the woo, so that we can mainstream these conversations so that they do become part of a normalized journey when you're looking for personal growth or emotional healing or the grief journey, that it's more than just at the cognitive level. There's so many other layers to incorporate to be able to have that full mind, body, and soul healing.
Yes. Okay, so let's dig into what these chakras are, the core seven that you said we were going to discuss today. And I know we could have a whole episode for each one. But if we were just going to give like a very entry level explanation of each chakra and kind of how it functions, yeah, let's just walk through that.
Yeah. So this is the fun part when you start to learn that each of these chakra points, each of these main 7 chakra points, are related to a physical part of your body. That is how you also begin to incorporate using this energy healing or chakra healing into your physical and emotional healing. So, as I was mentioning a minute ago, there are 7 main chakras. They run along a meridian from below the perineum, which is kind of like below the tailbone area. And they run all the way up the length of the front of your, well, they're front and back, but up the length of your body, your torso, through to the top of your head or your crown. And they each have a name. They each have a color associated with them. And they each have a organ or body part that they're actually connected to. So they start, number 1 starts at that spot below your tailbone, which is called the root. And this is our sense of safety in the world and our sense of safety in our bodies. Kayla, you and I actually touched on this a little bit last episode, that we as women are so often disassociated, not just from toxic relationships or trauma, but also culturally, it's not safe to be in our bodies. This is impacting the root chakra. That sense of disassociation is actually your root chakra becoming unbalanced. So this chakra is attached to your adrenal glands and your coccyx. And then we're going to move up. So we're coming up from the bottom into your pelvic region. This is known as your sacral chakra. Color associated with this is orange. The color associated with the root is red, if I didn't say that. Orange for the sacral chakra in the pelvic region. It's actually, if you hold your pointer, middle, and index fingers three together, like making this number 3 sign, and you place them below your belly button horizontally, that's the approximate location of your sacral chakra. And this is, of course, our sense of pleasure, joy, creativity, sexuality, birth. We birth actual humans, we birth creativity, we birth ideas. And this chakra is related to the bladder, the kidneys, the colon, and of course, the reproductive organs. So when we are blocked in this chakra, we are not necessarily experiencing that sense of joy, or if we're a writer or an artist, we may be creatively blocked. And we just, they talk about writer's block. That is most likely related to a blocked sacral chakra. Moving up from there into kind of the middle of our abdomen, but the upper part below the rib cage where the ribs kind of fan out. This is our solar plexus. If you were to get punched in that spot, you would be winded. This is our sense of self-worth. The color associated with this chakra is yellow. It is our sense of self-worth, self-esteem, self-respect, confidence. It is known as our center of power. And this is where that self-worth and confidence comes in. So when we've experienced a trauma, or a toxic relationship, it's the solar plexus that is most impacted. In fact, when we've been in a toxic relationship dynamic, again, personally, romantically, at work, with friends or family, it is the lower three chakras that are impacted the most by that dynamic of relationship. And that's where you're going to hold all the density, the upsetness, the grief, the shame, and the hurt. They're going to be held in the lower three chakras. And this is when we have that extended grief, that hurt, that we can't get over it. All of those feelings arise from not having a balanced root, sacral, or solar plexus chakra. The physical organs that are related to the solar plexus are our digestive system, our liver, our gallbladder, and our pancreas. And so we know clinically that the liver is like the central clearinghouse. So when for your all your organs and your bloodstream. So when you are processing deep emotions like shame and grief, they can get stuck in the liver. And so what happens with the emotions when we are not able to process them fully, they turn into this dis-ease. So it can show up as disease in our body, which is, when we break it out, is dis-ease or discomfort. It's the emotions that haven't been processed that will directly impact the physical body and the organs in the physical body and show up in some strange and wonderful ways, such as autoimmune, that depression or anxiousness or full-on anxiety, stomach upsets like digestive issues. What's the term for like the bowels being disrupted? Like BDI is the acronym I have in mind, but I'm not sure that's the right order. Having those butterflies, like that anxiousness in your stomach all the time. These are what it feels like physically when we haven't balanced or cleared our energetic body due to the trauma, stress, and heavier emotions that we're carrying around. So moving up from the solar plexus, so we're at the middle of our stomach now, we're coming up into our heart. And as we know, of course, the heart is all about love, unconditional love, universal love for others, and connectedness. And the heart color is green. And the organs that it relates to is the thymus, the heart, the lungs, the arms, and the hands. And so when we are in deep grief or heartache, you may notice a heaviness in your lungs. So for me, with that fourth and final toxic relationship, the unwellness that I was referencing was my lungs had become infected. I had had several rounds of bronchitis over the course of 2 or 3 years, and I'd never had bronchitis in my life. And it had impacted my ability to really take in a deep breath, because I had started grieving the relationship before it was even over, because of the trauma and the turmoil, the chaos, the trauma and the drama, as I call it. And it had already physically started impacting my lungs. And so healing energetically that area begins to heal the physical body as well. So as I was receiving regular energy healing sessions, my lungs began to improve. I was also doing things physically. I started running again. I started looking after myself very differently to help support that healing journey. Moving up from the heart into the throat. This is our ability to speak our truth. The throat is like an ocean blue, I call it. So this is speaking our truth, as well as being able to listen and discern truth. So one of the things that happens when you are in a toxic relationship is you have what's known as this cognitive dissonance. You're not quite able to discern what is fact and what is fiction, what is truth and what is untruth. And so when we're working with the energetic body and clearing it and healing it, we are also supporting our ability to be able to hear the truth of the matter. So to be able to advocate for ourselves, to stand up for ourselves, to speak up for ourselves, but also to know when we are not hearing the truth. And being able to process cognitively whether information we're receiving is truthful or not is highly important when you are moving out of those old codependent programming and trying to be more assertive and have those boundaries like we talked about in episode 2. And so the throat chakra is super important in a number of physical areas, but primarily being able to have a voice, to have your voice, to be able to advocate for yourself. And yes, so the organs associated with that are throat, thyroid, mouth, nose, teeth, neck, and ears. And, or sorry, not organs, but body parts. And then, so we move up from the throat to a spot just slightly above our eyebrows. This is known as the third eye. This is where clairvoyancy comes in. The color associated with this is indigo. So when we talk about someone being clairvoyant or seeing the future, they are primarily using this chakra to be able to see ahead into the future. And this is where our sixth sense or intuitive center for connecting with the higher realms resides. So we've moved up from the heart, and now we're moving up into the more woo-woo space, if you will. These next two chakras that I'm about to discuss are related to your higher power, your higher self, to spirit, to intuition. When you're clearing all of the main 7 chakras and balancing them and working with them energetically, you are opening up all of your psychic centers, because there's more than just the third eye that we're able to receive intuitive information from. So in terms of the physical body, the third eye is connected to the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, and the left eye. So quite often when you're beginning to, as they say, open your third eye, so you're starting to tap more deeply into your intuition through your third eye, you may experience a pressure behind your left eye. And that's because you're activating the pineal gland and the pituitary gland. And if you've ever studied or read or followed Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks a lot about the pituitary gland. It's a highly, highly important part of the intuitive opening or awareness, opening the pituitary gland, activating the pituitary gland is part of getting in touch with your intuition at a much higher level. So then moving on from the third eye, so we're now just slightly above our eyebrows, we're moving up to the top of our head, which is known as our crown. And this is just above the top of our head. And the crown is really it's a ring, obviously, and it is like a white light or a violet light. And the connection to the crown is tied to the subconscious mind and our highest sense of our true self. So this is where we connect to our higher self. So when we've been practicing meditation, or whether it's, listening to those frequencies that I've mentioned before, or doing guided meditations or anything like that, even yoga, yoga practice, mindfulness practices, you're learning to work with your higher self. Oh, even like a journaling practice where you're doing, what do they call it? Intuitive writing, where
Mm-hmm.
you're just allowing the words to flow. That's the connection to higher self. And that is opening up your crown chakra. So the organs or the body parts that are related to the crown chakra is the right eye, also the pituitary gland, the entire nervous system, as well as the entire skeletal system, all nerve pathways and electrical synapses. And it's linked to the function of give me a minute here, medulla oblongata. Oh my goodness.
That one's a mouthful.
Yes, I'll let you say that one because you
I
can
think
say it
it's
better.
medulla oblongata, I think.
There we go. You got it. Yes. Yeah. And so when we start to learn the physical connection that the chakra system has to our body, we can begin to understand how profound working with the energetic body can truly be, because you are supporting yourself in processing deep emotions. They may be stuck, they may be deeply buried and unprocessed, they may be fresh and new. At whatever level those emotions are, when we're working with the energetic body to clear them, we're supporting our physical body to perform at its peak level or optimum level, including our emotional state. This is why nervous system regulation is such a key element in what I teach as well, because learning about the chakra system, and as we've just discovered, the solar plexus is intrinsically tied to our nervous system. And so when we can balance our chakra system, we're actually balancing our nervous system. And when we balance our nervous system, we're able to come back into our body. And when we're able to come back into our body, as we talked about in episode 2, we're able to process our life experience without the anxiety, without that fraughtness and that over anxiousness. And we can move through those emotions and release them. In addition, the bonus to all of this is, yes, you have a heightened sense of intuitiveness. And that is a really fun part of starting to use your energetic body in addition to your physical body.
What a beautiful overview, beautiful recap of how this kind of functions. And it was so interesting as I was listening to you. A couple of things came to mind. First off, this aligns with like the hierarchy of needs, if we're looking at it from like the
Yes.
root to the crown. And
Yeah.
it also aligns with like spiral dynamics and developmental theories. And it just makes so much sense that it's like that physical and individual component that I feel like has been studied in so many other ways, but really bringing it into our own sphere of influence, our own sphere of healing. The one thing we can really impact is ourselves and how we're navigating each of these. But I think of that primary one, the root chakra, and all of the things that come with that when it comes to safety and survival and what that activates in our consciousness, in our responses to the world. Is there, I guess, a process as far as like, do you need to work with the more base chakras and then move up once those have been cleared? Is there a way to start this, or can you do it in any order?
So that's such a great question. And one of the things, yes, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this definitely directly relates to that. And bravo for picking up on that. That's such a great connection for people to make to the chakra system, to bring it down into the physical world even more solidly. One of the things that you were just saying reminded me of the expression, we have to feel it to heal it.
Mm-hmm.
It's super important to be able to feel your way through these emotions as experienced from trauma, big T or little t trauma. And it can't just be at the cognitive level. You can't logic your way through emotional healing. And so when you're working with the chakra system, you have to feel it to heal it. Mm. And you're supporting yourself so much more gently and easily when you incorporate the chakra system on your emotional healing journey. It does not have the same intensity as when you're just like muscling your way through grief and heartache and upsetness. Mm. So in response to your question, is there like, working with the bottom three first? No, there is no order of operations. It's just an understanding of what each of those chakras brings to the physical body. Mm-hmm. Or relates to the physical body. So I do spend time working on the lower three chakras with my clients, because that's directly tied to the nervous system and that sense of safety. And when you've experienced trauma or a toxic relationship dynamic, that's the area that we need to focus on to be able to set the foundation for you to feel stable. And as we've talked about, getting back into your body. But essentially, you have to balance all of them. You can't, when you're working with the chakra system, you're not just going to balance the bottom three and leave the other four. You're going to end up balancing all of them, because when one is out, they're all out. When you balance one, you're balancing the others. So generally, for instance, in a Reiki session, you work on all 7 of the chakras. So there's never just like one area that you're working on. However, that being said, there is give me a second here. There is a harnessing, if you will, of a particular chakra when you're trying to achieve one of the areas that they impact. So I'll explain that. If you're trying to do something creative, if you're writing a book or doing a painting or creating content, whatever it might be for you, you will want to charge up the sacral chakra a little bit more to be able to give you, like, to amplify your creativity. But when we're talking in terms of healing, you're going to be healing all of the main 7 chakras kind of simultaneously.
I love that. That's such it's a balancing approach. Yeah. And I think you've used that word so many times and it makes so much sense. It's like if you have maybe a really overdeveloped cognitive ability, or you're really tapped into your intuition, but you haven't done that trauma work, we all know that doesn't end well.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to, it impacts and influences. So that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for kind of breaking that down.
Yeah. And you just made a really great point too, Kayla. You can be over or under in any one of your chakras. So there is a physical connection or response to having like an overly active solar plexus, for instance. You will become, if it's overly activated, so like overly charged, you're going to become overly confident, which we know as boastful and bragging, and you're kind of arrogant. Whereas if it's underactivated or unbalanced, you're going to show up as timid, unconfident, shy, uncertain, all of those things that we feel when we've experienced upsetness or hurt or a toxic dynamic of some sort. So there is like that over or under effect that you will feel physically when you are not balanced. So yes, the key word is balance, because when we're balanced, mind, body, and soul, when we are balanced, we have a much more clear perspective of who we are, where we're going, what we want to do, and how we want to get there. And we are able to receive that intuitive guidance much more easily when we're balanced as well. So we have access to more information than just our physical five senses. And that's the other really exciting thing about working with the energetic body. When you're balancing it, again, this is why I say you're living life at the optimal level, because you're experiencing this expansiveness. You're experiencing this level of peace, this level of ease, this level of clarity, aka intuitiveness, at the peak level. And that allows you to have a very different life experience, a much more in-tuned, a much more calm or regulated life experience. And so challenges don't seem as overwhelming. In fact, you don't feel overwhelmed. You're able to break down your tasks into manageable bite-sized pieces. You don't have that level of anxiousness. This is not to say it's rainbows and sunshine all the time, but you have the tools, and we talked about this in episode 2, you have the tools to be able to bring yourself back to that centeredness much more quickly and easily, and continue to have this expansive, really fun life that you desire to have.
Wow. Yeah, what a beautiful way to just embrace ourselves and love ourselves in a bigger capacity, and really that soul care keeps coming to mind as I'm hearing you. Like, this is one of those tools that is for our minds, bodies, and souls.
Yep,
Yeah.
100%. Yes, it is.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you see people come to you with when they are thinking about the chakras, or maybe just things that you hear in conversation or in mainstream when it comes to people's understanding of this if they haven't done this work? What are some of those things that we can maybe like do some myth busting?
Oh, wow. That they're not real. And it's hooey and it's not real. That would probably be the main one. But we have, thankfully, enough science today to back up the fact that we are energy. Everything is energy. It is all energy. And we are just moving at different rates of speed energetically to create solid matter or not. And so, and I think that's why I shared at the top of this conversation, just to have an open mind if this is a new conversation for you, because there is still disbelief around what the energetic body or the chakra system really does and how it relates to the physical body. So I think there's, you mentioned this a little bit ago, that there's this separation between the soul and the mental body. And when we begin to learn that it really is all one, then, as I've shared, you have a very different life experience. You have a much more expansive life experience. And there's people who have suffered greatly through the majority of their lives, and then who begin to learn about the energetic body, about the chakra system. And they tap into that and they start working at healing that, which is, again, you're healing those emotions, that energy in motion. You're healing really the emotions, and you're having a profound transformation as a result of that. So myth busting number one would be that, yes, chakras are real and they are connected to our physical body.
I love that. And I think you do such a beautiful job of just really grounding this information. I think you're one of the most practical speakers I've heard on this topic when it comes to just allowing it to be accessible and to make sense for people, which was one of the reasons I was so excited to have you on. As we're talking about this physical body impact and connection, you've kind of talked about the impact and the organs or the body parts that are disrupted when these blocks are present. Are there things that we can do at a physical level to support in our chakra balance? Like, is there physical things that we need to be doing or can be doing to contribute to this as well as the energy work?
Yeah. And actually, I think it was episode one, you and I talked about this. So I have a, I guess, physical practice that I use to support my energetic body. And that is my energy hygiene. So even though I'm doing something physically, it's really in support of maintaining a balanced chakra system. So those things are an energetic shower, which is like literally a shower, just rinsing off, using water to break any energetic connection that I may have had throughout the day that's like a lower, heavier, denser energy. After a healing session, I use water to break the energetic connection between myself and a client. So literally going to rinse my hands. So water is a key element in the physical world that I use to support the energetic body or the chakra system. Literally soaking in the tub, that's another big one. That was super beneficial for me in the early days of my emotional healing journey or my grief journey. Soaking in the tub helps to detox your physical body as well as balance your energetic body. Our food is an important part of supporting our energetic body. So when we start to compare junk food, we know that it's a lower, denser energy. So those chips and chocolate bars and fast foods and takeout, that's actually low energy food. Processed food is low energy food. When we eat fruits and vegetables and fresh whole food, as they call it, it is of a higher vibration. So as you're ingesting either the junk food or the healthy food, you're contributing to your energetic body and your energetic being. What else? Those are kind of like some of the key obvious ones that I have been incorporating in my life for the last 5 years. Yes.
I love that. Yeah, it really helps to kind of pull in the fact that this is a lifestyle practice and there's like intentionality that we can move into the way that we're eating, the way that we're moving, the way that we're, showing up for our energy hygiene, all of these things we're doing. We can have some more, mindfulness around it and some more intentionality around it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that also ties into, you use the word movement. Yes. Such a key element in when you're moving, you're either sweating, depending on if you're doing like aerobic or cardio related movement, or lifting weights, that sort of thing, you're moving energy out when you are moving your body, your physical body. And when you're moving that energy out, we know that you are turning on the endorphins and the oxytocin and all the feel-good chemicals, right? Naturally occurring chemicals. And so that elevates your energetic body, that elevates your chakras, that, helps those wheels turn, rotate smoothly and evenly. And so, yeah, like being conscientious or mindful that these things that you're doing in the physical world actually are supporting your energetic body or your chakra system. So sweating it out is a great way to move energy out. So that denser, heavier energy, sweating it out. When we are building muscle, we are able to hold more light. So as we start working with the chakra system, we are elevating our awareness. We are opening up our psychic centers. We're becoming more intuitive. And we are also expanding our capacity to hold more light. And what that means is you are able to stay at a more elevated frequency or higher level emotion. So that love, light, joy, and grace, which are the higher frequencies or higher level of emotions on the emotional scale. So that shame, grief, anger are down at the bottom of the scale, and then moving up towards the top. Love and above, as they say, are the higher frequencies. And so when you're doing these things that we just discussed to support your physical body, you're also supporting your energetic body to hold more of that higher frequency. So that love, light, joy, and grace.
I love that. I also love the thought of like while we are moving our bodies, we are moving our energy, like just reminding ourselves that it's so much more than the physical experience, that that's part of it. And it's also doing this other work on us. And that's why some of these movement practices make us feel so good and so cleansed. And yeah, I love that. So I know we're running close on time. We've got a little bit left. I would like to kind of pull some of this back into our earlier conversations. We've been talking about relationships and toxicity and boundaries and creating this healthy dynamic between ourselves and the world around us, the people around us. Can you give us a little bit more information about how we can really utilize our energy balance and the chakra system knowledge in particular to help support us on this in this relational practice with others?
Yeah. Fantastic question. What you'll find when you begin to incorporate chakra awareness with your everyday life is that as you're elevating your energy, your emotions, you are moving out of what I call victimhood. We spend so much time after experiencing a toxic relationship or an unhealthy relationship dynamic, wherever that may have occurred, work, family, or intimate and romantic. We spend so much time in this victimhood space. And part of that is related to the codependent programming or beliefs that we have. And as you begin to heal your emotional body, you begin to identify those patterns or ways of being that are no longer serving you. And in particular, that solar plexus area that we were talking about, it becomes strengthened. So that sense of self-worth, that sense of self-esteem and confidence, you begin to build that up and you move into what I call victoryhood. And so using these knowledge or awareness of the chakra system on your emotional healing journey actually expedites the process and allows you to harness that sense of personal power because you are releasing the energy and the emotions, you're healing them and you're releasing them from your physical, emotional, mental, and energetic body. You are bringing in this new way of being. You're having different thoughts about how you're showing up in the world. You are seeing yourself differently. So you set different standards. As we talked about in episode 2, you start setting boundaries and holding them. And you begin to have this regulated nervous system, which allows you to approach life from this place of peace and ease rather than flight or fight or freeze or fawn. And when you can approach life from a regulated nervous system, everything changes for you.
Sounds like such a beautiful practice of self-love.
That's exactly what it is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are loving on yourself in a way that you never have before. And you didn't necessarily, not because you didn't want to, but you didn't have the tools or the knowledge or the awareness to be able to love on yourself the way that you will when you start to incorporate these things that we've talked about in all 3 episodes.
Yeah. It just makes it makes my heart so full to have this conversation with you because I think helping people to have this broader understanding of how they can love themselves and what it can look like, it really is the key to having those healthier relationships in any setting. Because if we don't have that and we don't have access to those tools and we don't know how to rebalance within ourselves, it's always going to be hard to find reciprocal environments and reciprocal people. So this is just so important.
Yeah. 2 things just came up as you were saying that. People only disrespect us slightly less than we disrespect ourselves. So when we don't know any better, we are essentially disrespecting ourselves with that lack of self-love. And confidence does not equal self-worth. And so although we may be super confident, that self-love piece that Kayla was just talking about is really tied to that self-worth. When we believe we are worthy, whole and complete as we are, we show up in the world completely differently, and we show up for ourselves completely differently than we do without that awareness.
Yeah. Ugh. Okay. I'm just so I feel so impacted by this conversation. My whole being is incredibly grateful for this conversation. Is there, I guess before we wrap up, any additional pieces that you really hoped we would get to that you want to share that would help, I think especially the beginner, the person who is just opening their consciousness to this idea of, energetic healing and the chakra work that we've been talking about today and everything we've been talking about in the 3 episodes you've joined us with. What are those really introductory practices that people could start to bring into their life? And I know we've talked and shared things throughout, but is there anything new coming up or any information you really want to share with that beginner?
Mm, Getting grounded is what just came up as you were saying that. I was thinking back to the very beginning of my emotional healing journey, and it was that getting grounded piece. And what I mean by that is learning to regulate your nervous system. So that self-soothing piece. because when you are learning to regulate your nervous system, when you are learning to get grounded, you are giving yourself a chance to be able to take in more information.
Mm.
And until you are somewhat regulated, everything else just is going to be overwhelming or noisy, too much information, TMI. So I would say for the newbies, the beginners, those that are just starting to explore this concept, is begin working with this concept of getting grounded. So there's a modality or philosophy out there about earthing. I am sort of referring to that, but that's not exactly what I mean. Getting grounded is really talking about starting to connect in to those energies, the earth energies, particularly, to set the foundation for you to find some moments of calm and serenity or peace, so that you're able to begin to process your experience and take on new information.
Beautifully said. Yeah, that's such a key piece, I think, especially when we're talking about healing from trauma and stress and this overstimulation of our nervous systems. It can be a lot to try to step into a new realm of healing. So
Mm-hmm.
to really focus on regulation first as the first step into the energy work, and getting grounded and calming and soothing. And that's such a gentle way to step into it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And everything that is meant to unfold will unfold exactly as it is meant to.
Mm,
And just giving yourself permission to allow for that experience to unfold for you.
yeah.
Be willing to try.
That's half the
the begin
battle.
the beginner's mind, right? Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Ugh, okay. Wow. This has been so beautiful, so meaningful. I feel like I have gone through an energetic cleansing in just having this conversation with you. Um, my entire being is just calmer, I think, even than when we started the conversation. So thank
Yeah.
you for that. This has been beautiful. Um, well, share with the listeners any final thoughts you have and where they can find you if they want to stay connected with you or want to work with you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this time, Kayla. It has been so impactful to share this space with you. And as I shared in a note yesterday, I'm so grateful that we've connected and that you've created this space to share this wisdom and information. So if you would like to connect with me, my email is illuminatedjoy@outlook.com. And of course, I'm on all socials as Illuminated Joy. And there will be notes in the show notes or links in the show notes, so you can come and find me there. And the website is illuminatedjoy.com. And I look forward to connecting with you, answering any questions that you may have. And yeah, I'm just so grateful for this opportunity and for our worlds connecting. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm mirroring all of that, echoing all of that. So grateful for this time that we've spent together. These 3 episodes, I feel like it's really infused into my life as well as into the podcast. So what a gift. It's been amazing. I've loved going on this journey with you, and I'm excited to stay connected, and maybe there will be future collaborations available to us when the time is right. So,
Absolutely.
for everyone who's listening, thank you for going on this journey with us. I hope that you have done as Sarah requested and just curiously and gently opened yourself to this information and come back to it. Don't expect it to all land right away, and start with that first step, that beginner step of opening yourself, giving it a try, and regulating, being really gentle and easy and kind with yourself as you start to approach a new modality of healing that can really transform your life. So, I hope you found something within today's episode that you can practice today and that you'll apply that. Thank you again, Sarah. It's been amazing. And for everyone who's listening, take beautifully, amazingly wonderful care of yourselves until we talk again.
Thank you for listening. If you want more resources on thriving in your life or want details on working with me, check out my website at internallyguidedleadership.com or follow me on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok at Internally Guided Coach. Be gentle with yourselves out there, and I'll talk to you next time.